Hi everyone, welcome back. Let's write some more Leetcode today. Today we are solving minimum equals sum of two arrays after replacing zeros. So this problem is pretty straightforward. We will be given two arrays and we need to replace each of the zeros in the two arrays with a strictly positive integer, meaning 1 or greater. And our goal is that we want to make the sum of the elements of both arrays equal. And we want to return the minimum equal sum, not just to make them equal. And if we are not able to do that, then we return -1. So if we look at this example, 3, 2, 0, 1, 0, and 6 and 5. So we see that this has 11 and this has 6. And the minimum that we can do is to make the sum 12. So we will add 1 here, and then we can sum these two up in whatever way to make it 12. And if we look at this example, it is impossible because we don't have a 0 here to match it, so then we return -1. So now that we have seen some examples, let's get to how we can solve this problem. So before we go over how to solve this problem, let's go over all the possible types of cases that we may encounter. So for the first case, it can be that neither array includes zeros, and if that is the case, then we realize that the sum of the two arrays in the input must be equal, otherwise there's no way to make them equal because we don't have any zeros to shift the sum of the array. So if we look here, this would be possible, and the minimum sum would be 18, and this one, it would just be -1 because not possible. Now the second case is if one array includes zeros and the other does not. So if that is the case, then the array that includes zeros must have the smaller sum. So if we look here, this would be -1 because you cannot add anything here to match 99. However, over here, we can add however much we need to match it to 99. So we'll return 99 for this one. Now, for the last case, it could be that both arrays include zeros. So if we look here, we have 2 zeros here and 1 0 here. And we know that because we need a strictly positive integer, these values of zeros must be at least 1. So for this case, what we can do is add up the sum, and for the zeros, we will add 1 to the sum. So the sum of this would be 100, and the sum of this would be 20. And obviously the minimum sum would be 100 because for this array, we can just use these two and add however much we need to match it to 100. So we return 100 for this case. So if both arrays include zeros, there will always be a possible way to make a minimum equal sum. So what we can do is we can loop through both arrays, sum 1 and 0, 1 to track nums 1, sum 2, 0, 2 to track nums 2, and the sums would be the sum of the arrays. And remember, for 0, we will add 1 to the sum instead of zeros. And for the zeros, it would be to keep track of the number of zeros in the array. So if 0, 1 is 0 and sum 2 is greater than sum 1, then we return -1. Or if 0, 2 is equal to 0 and sum 1 is greater than sum 2, then we will also return -1. Otherwise, we will just return the max of sum 1 and sum 2, and that would be our result. So let's go over this example real quick. So first we'll look through nums 1, add 3 to sum 1, add 2 to sum 1, add 1 to 0, 1 and 1 to sum 1, add 1 to sum 1, and add 1 to sum 1 and add 1 to 0, 1. So now we will iterate through nums 2, add 6 to sum 2, add 5 to sum 2, and add 1 to sum 2 and 1 to 0, 2. So now we see that 0, 1 and 0, 2 are both not equal to 0. So we'll return the maximum of sum 2 and sum 1, which is 12. So 12 will be our result. So the time complexity would be O of n plus m, where n is the number of elements in nums 1 and m is the number of elements in nums 2 because that would be what we are iterating through. And the space complexity would be O of 1 because we are not using any extra space. So now let's get to the coding part. So first we can initialize sum 1 to 0, sum 2 to 0, 0, 1 to 0, and 0, 2 to 0. And now we'll look through nums 1. So for n in nums 1, sum 1 plus n. So we're adding n to sum, and if n happens to be 0, then we need to add 1 to both the sum 1 and the 0, 1. And for n in nums 2, we will add n to sum 2 in each iteration, but if n is 0, then we need to make sure we add 1 to sum 2 and 0, 2. And now we check if 0, 1 is equal to 0. If that's the case, if sum 2 is greater than sum 1, then we return -1. And then we check the same for 0, 2. If 0, 2 is equal to 0 and sum 1 is greater than sum 2, then we return -1. If that's not the case, we can return the max of sum 1 and sum 2. And let's see if it works. Okay, perfect. Hope this was helpful. Thank you all for watching. If you have any other questions or comments, feel free to leave it in the comment section, and I hope to see you all again soon.